Welcome to the GRAP UP, your monthly blast of cold takes on the world of professional wrestling, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I'm the intrepid traveler, Mark Robinson. With me, as always, he is the editor over at the Wrestling Observer. He is Brian Rose. Brian, I hear you've been playing some poker.
I have. I have been playing Balatro a lot, and man, it is an addicting game.
Hell
Like
yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I played some of those like poker, like mini machines that you play hand poker with, and I had to learn completely how to play poker again to play this, and I'm completely into it. I'm into the Joker, um, the Joker, roguelike elements where you can add like 2 times, 3 times multipliers. It's an addicting game. Like I've cleared it twice already, but I am still going to go play it. I have the next 2 days off, so I'm going to spend most of it probably playing the game, even though I've cleared it twice. And I'm going to try to go for the harder difficulties and see how I do.
Yeah, we spoke for it a good 25 minutes or so on the last installment of A Link to the Cast. And I imagine, and I probably won't be on this week's episode, but I imagine Jack in particular will probably have been still playing it all week as well. We have a group chat for Link to the Cast, and every other day now there's like some new mad combination one of us have established. Yeah, that game has really sunk its claws in, and particularly I've been playing on the Steam Deck. That is a dangerous game to be playing at like 11:30 at
Oh
night
yeah,
because you're just like just one more session, and then it's 3
yeah.
o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I found myself at like 2 in the morning saying, "Okay, I'm going to finish this round, and then I'm going to go
Yep,
to bed." And then by the
yep,
time I finish, it's like almost 3:30. I'm like, "Oh boy, I better get to bed."
yeah, it's
That's
dangerous,
how it was
dangerous
last
stuff.
night. Yeah,
Yeah. Because you've been to Las Vegas before, right?
I have.
Did
I'm
you play
probably
any
going to
poker
go
when you were out
and
there?
I have not. I usually just play slots because
Ah,
for a long time I've completely forgotten how to play poker, and then this game came out of nowhere, and I started playing it, and I'm like, okay, I need to remember all the poker hands, so I do good, and now I can play poker. I think. I mean, real life poker is kind of more. It's kind of different from Balatro,
oh, real
but
life
now I have an
poker is,
idea.
is is like psychological warfare. Again, I was talking about this on the podcast. Like half of poker is just psyching out your opponents. And the joy of Balatro to some degree is that it removes the stress of that, and you just purely
Yeah.
focus on just like beating the blind and getting a high score. It's yeah, it's a pretty magical game. My one story, I went to Las Vegas when I was like 19, I think, because my uncle was getting married out there. Now it wasn't like a full on, Vegas wedding with an Elvis groom
With
and
Elvis.
whatnot. They were in the God, what was the name of there's a really fancy hotel, the Bellagio, I think it
Oh,
was called. Like had like a really nice chapel and everything. But we got there and I was super, super jet lagged because I think I'd been awake for about like 32, 33 hours. Because we got there in the evening and then I immediately walked the entire length of the strip to go
oh,
to where the rock and roll blues bar or something. I can't remember the exact name of it. But there was a band there playing that I really liked from England that was a very like low key band. Like no one there knew who they were. And so like I went there and I picked up one of the t-shirts and like the merch guy was like, "Wait, you know who this band is?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm from England as well. I'm over for the weekend. It's just like circumstances that I'm here." So I ended up like going backstage to meet them and watching from the side of the stage and whatnot. But by the time I got back to the hotel, I'd been awake for like 33, 34 hours. So I only slept for like 2 hours. And then my body clock still just hadn't adjusted yet. So I'm like fucking jet lagged out of my mind. I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to go downstairs. And because I brought some money to obviously play at the tables and whatnot.
oh yeah.
And I'm pretty good at blackjack, as good as one can be at blackjack in terms of, the luck that comes with playing it. But blackjack's a fairly simple game to play even when you've had like no sleep. So I
Oh yeah.
went down there, and within about an hour of playing, I'd somehow started with like 30 quid and I ended up with $300,
Oh,
which is like the most money I've ever won because I've gone to casinos a few times, and I've always just done terrible. And I won $300, and that like lasted me through the week. I bought my granddad because he's really into Harley Davidson, so we went to the Harley Davidson shop, and I bought him something there. And yeah, I felt like a king. And
Yeah.
I never ever like go back to Las Vegas because I'm sure I'll lose $300 next time I go.
Oh yeah, I don't spend too much time at the casino in Las Vegas. Like I'll play a little bit, but like once I lose like $20, I'm like, okay, moving on,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not gonna improve from there.
Yeah, you just need to go with zero sleep. That's apparently the strategy.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Las
That's a
Vegas is a
different
is a weird
strategy.
place.
It
There's no
is,
place on
but
earth like Las Vegas, for better or for worse.
yeah, it's completely different. But it's fun. I always have fun when I go over there.
How are you? Let's bring it back down to us. How are you? How's your month been?
I'm doing good. I'm been working. There's always so much stuff going on at all hours of the night and day. Like we're about to get into Elimination Chamber, and I did stay up to watch that live.
Yes, for
But
once
I
you can
think
feel my
I
pain of
think
trying to stay up for
yeah.
a pay per
I was
view.
about to say it's uh people in the UK and Ireland and elsewhere are probably used to having to wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning to watch WWE or AEW. So
Oh,
it's like a
there's no waking up in the middle of the night. It's just powering through till 4 a.m. in the
but
morning.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's the approach.
that's how I am with New Japan. It'll start at like 12 or 1 or 2 in the morning, and I just power through till 4 or 5 whenever it ends.
Yeah.
I'm used to it in that regard, but I hadn't
It
stayed
and it
up
was
late in a
fine.
long
It
time.
was fine when you was watching New Japan in like 2016,
Yeah, and when it
2017.
was like really good,
Yeah, not in
and then I stayed
2024.
up a few weeks ago to watch what was it when Show won the junior title, and it's
Oh
like
yes, yeah.
oh wow, that's terrible. Why am I staying up to watch that?
Yeah.
And I
I,
learned
I
my lesson there.
I imagine there are certain life choices that are being questioned when you're watching a House of Torture match at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I've been covering New Japan since 2012, 2013, 14. I have never been not into New Japan as much as I am right now.
Yeah.
That House of Torture stuff is terrible.
This is like the worst period since the
Yeah.
Inokiism of the mid 2000s, you know?
Yeah, they have decided to push House of Torture this year. I got that strongly the minute that Evil jumped Naito at the end of the Tokyo Dome for no reason. Uh, so yeah, they are going full bore with this group. They keep adding members. All of their matches are literally the same thing in every single goddamn match. I am not into it at all. I I cannot imagine a company booking this way when you have so many other promotions um vying for your attention and are doing things that are much more interesting and fun than what you are doing. It's really astonishing.
I think I, I I feel like there's a couple of things. One, obviously, Gato very much likes the American style, likes the Memphis style, and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of that in House of Torture. I think partially it's a combination of there's probably no chance in hell that any of the House of Torture lads are going to be picked up by WWE or AEW
No,
tomorrow. Not exactly like Evil has ever been prominently featured on any of the Forbidden Door shows or whatnot.
no.
So there's that. But I also think as well, God the hell, what was my second point going to be there? I had a really poignant second point there, and it's now just flown out of my head. And that's going to annoy me. That's really going to annoy me. God damn it, why can't I think of it? Well, regardless, it's terrible. And
Hmm.
actually, no, that yeah, it's just come back to me now. I wonder if because back in 2011, 2012, um, Noah was sort of on the downward spiral post the unfortunate passing of Masawa and the kind of mild botching of pushing the next generation in terms of like Marufuji and Kenta and I guess the failed experiment to some degree of Morishima. And I wonder, and at the time, obviously, New Japan were recovering from that post Inokiism era and the rise of Tanahashi as the ace, and it was like they were having to present the best cards possible to try and kind of get themselves back to where they were, sort of like in the 90s and whatnot. And I wonder, like New Japan, look at the lay of the land of Japan at the moment, both in terms of the economics of the country because the yen is in trouble. I think Japan just announced that they've gone into recession. And
Yeah.
so like they're maybe thinking like, well, it doesn't matter what the fuck we put on. There's only so much money we can bring in at the moment. So let's just push House of Torture and we'll get to like our proper guys in a couple of years' time. And I wonder if also they just look at like Noah is a complete fucking disaster at the moment and has been for a while, but certainly post Keiji Muto retiring in terms of their business.
And now New Japan's kind of doing the same thing that Noah's doing, where all the young guys that they could push and they have something there, they just keep losing and they lose key matches and they just keep jobbing out. And it's like,
to some degree, yes,
why?
but I also don't think. Well, for a start, none of them. Well, I guess they are being kind of like called the New Musketeers. I don't think any of them have had any level of the same treatment that Kaito Kiyomiya.
That's true.
I don't think any of them have had to deal with like what he had to deal with. But yeah, there's obviously so much you can kind of go in that direction, and hopefully, like post House of Torture, we'll get there. But I do think as well that just New Japan just look at like Noah and like, well, there's no challenge there. And even as good as All Japan has been over the last couple of months, they're in such a lower
They're
position on the
at a
card.
level where it's like,
It doesn't matter what they do. They're
yeah.
not gonna, like
And
force New
also, there
Japan's
seems to
hand.
be issues over there too, because people have left all of Japan in the last couple of months, and
Yeah.
they have yet another president that no one seems to like, and this president wants to harbor a relationship with WWE, which WWE was interested in for about a month, then they lost interest, and I guess there's all this talk about Nakajima going to NXT and stuff, and I don't think that's happening now. So a
That would
bunch of
be
people over there
such
are
a
just
weird fit. you know, just
yeah, it is.
I can't see Nakajima in North America. Like, how many
I
matches has he ever had in North America? It can't be more
I
than a
don't know,
handful, if
not a
that.
lot. I
Like
don't think a
maybe he's
lot,
done a Ring of Honor stint here or there, but
maybe.
yeah.
And that was like way before he became like a top level act.
Oh, sure, for sure. Like he was
Because
still
he was
a
around for a long time, but it wasn't until a few years ago where he kind of like changed his hair and he became, he became a bigger star. He ended up being more like a natural. He developed charisma, I think.
yeah.
I think
Oh,
that's
for
the
sure.
thing.
Yeah,
And
because
he
like
really got over Noah.
for so many of his early years, he was just cosplaying. God, what the hell's his name? The name escapes me. But he was basically a cosplay of his mentor at the time. God, that's gonna annoy me. Can't remember what his name is.
I know I
Anyway,
can't. People are gonna be mad at us when we say that we
probably,
don't remember this
probably.
too.
Do you know what? I'm gonna have to Google it now because it's gonna
Yeah,
piss me off otherwise. Katsuhiko Nakajima. Who am I looking for?
I know who you're thinking of.
Yeah, yeah.
People are gonna be really pissed at us.
Kensuke Sasaki. That's it.
Yeah, Kensuke Sasaki. That's
Yeah.
right.
It was
Yeah,
just basically a mini him. And then
yeah.
like he now very much is his own character. But yeah, just in North America, that would just I feel like that'd be such a weird fit.
I know when he left Noah, I'm thinking like, well, I guess maybe AEW, but even then, it's like I don't know because I just struggle seeing him in North America, and I thought he was going to go New Japan, but I guess not. I
I
don't
mean, he
know.
still could. He still
He
could.
still could,
Like I'm
but I
sure if
mean, being a big fish in a small pond like All Japan, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, look, it could be a common. It could be a couple of things. It could be him and New Japan have a date lined up, but until then, he wanted to do this All Japan stint. He wanted to do the feud
Yeah,
with Miyahara, not Miyahara. I just can't get my names out at the moment. Fuck, was it Miyahara? Yeah, it was. Sorry, it was Kento Miyahara. Yeah.
mm.
Um, or it could just be that like he's just going to wait until the phone rings because he knows New Japan will come calling at some
Because
point.
New
Who
Japan
knows?
does need some new faces that can have great matches. Because I mean, in the
Oh,
last couple of
desperately.
months, they've lost both Okada and Will Ospreay. So they are in need of some top level acts, and I think that would be the best fit for Nakajima.
Yeah.
It's to be a top New Japan guy.
And keep in mind, God bless Tetsuya Naito is a very popular star in Japan, but he's also, I
It's
think, he's
been
the other
like
side
10
of 40
years.
now.
Yeah,
And
like he's in his
those
40s
knees,
now.
yeah, and
His
those knees, they're
knees,
not
and
good.
he's banged up.
Yeah.
Him
Um,
and Hiroshi Tanahashi are both banged up, and they're both in their 40s. And
I mean, at least Naito can still run the ropes. Like
yeah,
Tanahashi is, he needs to lean hard into that presidential role and fast.
yeah, it's
You know,
time that he goes the way of like Tenzon and Hanma, where they wrestle tag matches and not much beyond that. Because it's not like even a Kojima or Yuji Nagata situation where they're not emphasized, but if they are given a big time match, they'll do fine. I mean, like with Tanahashi, it's like I think if with the right opponent and the right style, he could still do a fairly good match. But like,
yeah. I mean,
it's
the
getting
match with him and
tougher.
Zack at Wrestle Kingdom was
Yeah,
a
that was a good
very solid
match,
match. Yeah,
but it's getting tougher because
yeah.
he's like
Oh yeah,
almost he's on the other side of 40, and he's years of having all of these great matches. It's like he's completely banged up.
yeah. And then obviously outside of that, you've got Sonata, which is that's just a failed experiment at this point. There's no other way to
Yeah,
put it. Yeah.
bland guy,
Um,
just no charisma.
and it's like, I mean, they've brought in Matt Riddle, and I don't know. Like on the North American side, there's obviously the issues in terms of just him as a fucking person and the
Yeah,
baggage that comes with that. And I don't know, maybe he can go over in Japan. I don't know how Japan are going to take to him.
there's
He
also Nick
certainly
Nemeth.
has he certainly has the ability, to I think get over to that crowd. But yeah, I guess we might as well just stick with New Japan for the moment. We've been chatting for them for the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
We did have the New Beginning tour, which was mainly highlighted by the fact that we had the last couple of matches from Okada, and then the New Beginning in Osaka card, which had crucially Okada defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi in their final encounter for the time being, at least. Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Bryan Danielson in a return bout from their match at Wrestle Dream last October. And the Bullet Club War Dogs beating the United Empire in the 10-man cage warfare. What do they call it? 10-man dog pound steel cage match is what it's
yeah,
been.
something like that. It's War Games, wasn't it?
Yeah, but basically war games. I don't know how much you saw of this. I've been keeping up to date a little bit with New Japan. I did watch a few cards from the Fantastic Mania tour, which were really fun. But just like pure distilled New Japan at the moment is just a real fucking slog to get through.
Yeah, I
You know,
have not watched a lot. I stayed up one night to watch that show that I talked about where Show won the title, and it was so bad. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch the rest of this. And then an evil match was next. I'm like, I'm not. You expect me to watch this after I just watched a negative star match with Show and Desperado? No, thank you.
yeah.
I'm good. Like I have not watched a ton of New Japan this month, but anything I did watch, it's like bad. And
Like
then they try
when when your
they
tag team
actually dared.
champions when your tag team champions are Chase Owens and Kenta, you know something's
Yeah,
gone wrong.
why? Like, I don't get the Chase Owens thing, but like he's not gonna go anywhere. So I guess you're gonna push
No.
him. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, they actually dared to headline the match everyone wanted to see was Desperado versus Naito for the 52nd anniversary show. Then showing the title, so it's like you're actually like advertising that as a match you think people would want to see. And I don't know how that show did, but God, that was such a turnoff for me. I'm like, no, well, I'm not gonna watch that show. I'm not gonna watch that main event. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I do think there's like a disconnect between Western audiences who do not like the House of Torture and Japanese audiences who I think accept it more. Because it's not like, I don't know how New Japan business is doing in the last couple of months, but I don't know. I don't think it's been like such a drastic downfall ever since they really put the rocket on this group. But maybe there'll be more signs in the coming months. But like as far as I know, people like to boo them. And
I do wonder if
yeah,
just the fact that you got Naito on top is enough to get them through this
maybe
period. Um,
he is a
but you know,
star, but like you
it's
can't
it's
rely on him
tough.
much longer.
No, and even like some of your other top guys, you know, Ishii is like 47 now, I think.
Yeah.
Like Takagi still is I think he's only in his early 40s and he still can be depended on, but you know, he's not like a main event star for them. So it is rough goings. And I guess the thing that I'm curious about is like it does feel like Zack Sabre Jr. has been spending the last kind of month or two being elevated to that next level. And
Should be.
you would imagine whether it's a case of him winning the New Japan Cup or something after, but you'd have to imagine that he is in some sort of position for a title match at some point this year. Which I'd be very curious to see about how that goes and how like what the ramifications of that are. But in terms of like this card itself, Okada and Tanahashi it was probably it's hard to kind of rate those matches because the curve that you're grading on is so high and so steep because of the legacy that stands behind them. But there is a simple fact that like their best matches were, you know, somewhere in the region of anywhere between 8 and 10 years ago, and that's a lot more mileage on the legs of Tanahashi at this point. So even if he tried to reel back the clock by a couple of years, it's still just not going to be the same as the match that I always think of is which is their Invasion Attack match. And I might only think of that match because Okada enters with a giant dinosaur next to him. But regardless, um, it was perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable. But you know, just it's as much as you're going to get from Tanahashi these days,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson. I think I preferred this match to the Wrestle Dream match. I think that the Wrestle Dream match was excellent, of course, but there felt like there was an extra layer of physicality to this one, and there felt like there was an extra layer of like chess being played with these two trying to outdo each other, and constantly trying to get like the submissions and whatnot. Um, and I think that like the booking of this has been tremendous in terms of them, you know, both winning their matches on their home soil. I'm curious about where the third match takes place when they do that. Um, Logic would dictate that maybe you want to do that before Zach. If he does have a title match, you want to do that before then, but I don't know where the right place for that would be. Um, so we'll see what comes to that. But this was definitely worth going out of your way to see. And then the main event, man, this thing, right? I it's one of those things where you know when you watch a match and you really appreciate the effort from everyone involved and they're all going out there to give it their all. You know, no one's slacking. It's violent. It has that kind of air of brutality to it. Hanari gets banged up pretty badly, but there's also just a lot of nonsense going on, and the
I
match
heard this was like an hour or 40-minute match or something like that.
1 hour
Ready to go.
and four
Oh my
fucking minutes
god.
long. You know,
It's
um,
too much.
I would be curious to go back and see how long the Ring of Honor CZW War Games match was because it probably wasn't that far off in terms of the time limit. But I also feel like the stories in that match, like every character had a story that was kind of interconnected with someone else, whether it's Chris Hero and Eddie Kingston and Homicide and Danielson, and like you know, there are characters that had feuds with their opposing partners, but then there were feuds within their own factions as well. And this just, you know, the whole thing with TJP and his alter
He's
ego,
like a
which
like a spirit or something.
Something, some Filipino spirit or kind
Okay.
of like fable or whatnot, but it's just not vibing really. And this was the
No.
wrong place to do it. It just looked a bit stupid. But like the effort was there, and obviously Osprey gave it his all, and there were certain parts of the storyline I think with Francesco Akira, who was like not really wanting to do this, like this kind of level of violence isn't his thing, but he came out, he brought it, he jumped on top of the cage and jumped off, and so there are elements of it that did work, but it just went on, got too goddamn long, and like 20 minutes shaved off of this, and you probably would have had like a fairly easy to say 4-star match, but yeah, just the longer it went on, the more it dragged. So um, unfortunate that Will's New Japan career ended on this note, where the intentions were there, but I just think the execution was just a bit off. So yeah, New Japan's in a weird spot, in a really weird spot, and I think the thing that I'm really curious about is like what Forbidden Door looks like this year. Now that
With all the emphasis on House of Torture, I don't know. I mean, like you can bring in um like Naito, you can bring in Tanahashi, all these names that are still there, but like I don't want to see a House of Torture match on Forbidden Door. That seems like the way that they're pushing this group. It's like there's going to be some involvement with them. So
yeah, and also the fact
I don't
is that
know.
like two of the kind of core attractions that you've used for your Forbidden Door matches have been Okada and Osprey, and it's like, well, you have those now, so
I feel like there'll be an emphasis on CMLL wrestlers too. So
yeah.
maybe that will make up for it because I don't know if there'll be a lot of CMLL guys jumping to AEW, but I don't know.
Maybe CMLL and New Japan can form the new alliance.
Like the WCW alliance.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Stephanie McMahon comes
Like
out,
get
new owner of
Stephanie in
CMLL.
charge of yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, she wears the
that's where she's been
CMLL
this whole
hats
time.
and yeah. That's where
Yeah.
she's been. And then Shane I think is still with WWE, but Shane can buy AEW from Tony Khan.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure he's got the money for that.
Sure, probably.
Well, no, he probably spent all that money on one of his many failed
No,
Chinese ventures.
probably. And Shad Khan is way richer than the
Oh yeah.
McMahons.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which some specific WWE fans either fail to recognize or refuse to recognize, but here we are. Um, Speaking of WWE, Elimination Chamber Perth, as this particular event was called. Um, so, gotta be quite honest, I thought this show was really fucking boring.
Really?
I did some people kind of like decry that they thought this was like just a dreadful show, one of the worst shows they've seen, blah blah blah.
No.
I don't think it was that, but I did think it was a boring show, and more specifically, I'm at the point now with like these Triple H era premium live events that they're doing, the
Yeah.
pacing of these things. It is astonishing that these shows, which only have like 4 or 5 matches, feel just as long and tedious as the 4 5 hour events they were doing several years ago. I don't understand.
I There were times during the show where it was like they had 20 minutes for entrances. Like that main event, everybody got their own entrance, and that took like 20, almost half an hour. For the Grayson Waller effect, Cody came out and did all of his pop and circumstance, and Seth Rollins came out. And then, really, when you think about it, they didn't talk about much. They think they talk. I think Cody somewhere in there during the like 30, 40 minutes that segment took. Um, I think he finally challenged The Rock to a match or something, but like there was a lot of time wasting on this show. There's only 4 matches. The 4 matches were fine. The tag team title match was really good. That was the easily the best thing on the show. But after the show was over, I didn't hate the show. I thought the show was fine. It's kind of better than the Royal Rumble actually, because I think the Chamber matches were better than the Rumble matches. Was it like a great show? No, I would go as far as saying it was a fine show. But like, did I need to stay up until 5 in the morning to watch it? Not
No,
really.
no.
I mean, it was like a big stadium. It looked nice. There's fireworks. So I mean, that was kind of fun. But like, no, I didn't need to stay up until 5 to watch the show. And Nia Jax is terrible. I'm just gonna put it out there. She looked so bad in that match, but Rhea Ripley was so good that the match ended up being pretty good. So there's at least that. But like, God, I don't get the Nia Jax experiment. She's looked so bad since coming back. Sloppy, very sloppy, and just her selling is terrible. When she goes on offense, she looks great, probably because she looks like she wants to freaking annihilate everyone. Yeah, she's not good.
the
Rhea
thing
Ripley
with
carried
the thing
her.
with Nia, for better or for worse, she's really the only effective heel that they have that can actually get like genuine heat. Now how much of that actually you might want to put as like go away heat, that's up for debate. But like, Io Sky is a heel, I guess technically, but she's not really
Yeah,
someone you want to boo because she's like a very good wrestler.
just she's gotten cheered in some spots. Remember in Puerto Rico last year where
Exactly.
they were
Yeah.
cheering for her?
And like Asuka and Kairi Sane, they're all just too good because they're so good. Like they're probably the like you can make arguments about like Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch and Rhea, but they're up there in terms of the better female wrestlers they have. Um, you and they have so much charisma between the three of them that you wouldn't want to really boo them. So like Nia Jax is really the only effective heel that they've got, which is also kind of like a byproduct of everything that ended up making Becky Lynch, into the megastar that she is. So I can understand like putting her in this spot and obviously putting up against Rhea Ripley. And you can make a conversation about the fucked up because people are very quick to bang on AEW, sometimes rightly, about the skewed dynamics between who their heels and faces are on a week to week basis. But like the Judgment Day are kind of pushed as like the big kind of raw heel faction, and that was very much the case with like the way that Finn and Damien and Dominic Mysterio were presented on the show. But then Rhea Ripley comes out in the main event and is the biggest fucking babyface superstar you've ever get, which obviously is going to happen because she is an Australian superstar in her home country. Like you can't avoid that, but
Yeah.
it does skew the dynamic somewhat of like what is she actually, is she a heel or a face, because she's obviously going to be the heel going into the match with Becky Lynch for Mania. But sometimes look, this happens, you go to a country where a superstar is from and you just kind of have to lean into it. So I guess I can't hold it against WWE for that. But Nia Jax does kind of make sense in this instance, but as you say, it is quite unfortunate because she's utterly fucking dreadful.
She is. She's. I mean, I know what you said about her getting heat, but like, I don't get why they brought her back. Like, there's so many better people to put in that position, and it's like they are going full bore with her as this unstoppable heel, and like, I'm not into it. She's I've never thought of her as a good wrestler, and she's demonstrating that. This match with Becky Lynch on Monday, she looked terrible.
Yeah.
Like even worse than Elimination Chamber. I don't get it.
Do you know how Nia Jax's theme goes?
Not the new one.
No, I remember
Um,
her original. I remember original NXT one. I have
I'm
no
not
fucking
like
clue how
most
new one is.
girls.
Yeah,
Wasn't that?
exactly. Where I watched the little bit of the Raw match between Apollo Crews and Andrade this week because I just wanted to see how they presented Andrade. And Apollo Crews came out with his music, and it was, we were having the conversation last month about Def Rebel, and it was like, even by their standards, this was the most fucking generic Def Rebel track I've ever heard.
All you do is go Apollo, and then it's like you do something to let you know who it is, and then like a generic guitar riff.
But it's not. No. This is the thing with Death Rebel. It's not about the guitar. They
Well,
have
it's like
like they
synth.
have a keyboard synth sound, which sounds
Yeah.
kind of like a fake trumpet. It's a god awful sound, and they just go ma 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 ma,
Yeah.
and it's just it's
That's
so
for
bad.
everyone. For everyone. Everyone has that synth beat that sounds so generic and so samey for
Yeah,
everyone. Like it's always the most noticeable during the Royal Rumble when you're trying to like figure out whose theme that is, and it's like you can't identify it because it's so generic and so everyone has that generic synth beat, and it's like this isn't how it used to be. I used to be able to identify people back in the day, and I'm like, oh no, like Naomi got a new theme, and it's utterly generic. Tiffany
I
Stratton got
know.
a new theme, it's utterly generic.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
you know, ugh.
but yeah, like, do you have any hot takes on this show? Because I kind of got nothing on any of these matches.
We're talking about Elimination
Elimination
Chamber.
Chamber. Yeah.
Um, Nothing like out of the ordinary. Everything was fine. I didn't think there was anything that was like bad or that match with Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley. It kind of reminded me of like 1980s Hulk Hogan, where he would come in, maybe like more like late 80s Hulk Hogan, where he would bring in a monster and he would sell forever, and then finally he finds an opening and he makes a comeback and he hits his move and he wins, and that was pretty much how this match went. Um, you know, Rhea Ripley came off like a star, and I thought, she's been doing so well over the last couple of years, like maintaining that aura, and you could tell she is like a big time main event level talent, and that's how kind of how I saw this match. It was it was like probably the best Nia Jax match ever, because how good Rhea Ripley was just carrying the match. So kudos to her. Yeah, beyond that, I mean, the other three matches that there's not much to talk about. The tag team title match is really good, easily the best thing on the show, and it was good enough to where I thought maybe the new Cash Republic, that's a new name, would get the win, but they didn't. The two chamber matches were pretty good. Um, they set up some stuff with AJ and LA Knight for WrestleMania, probably. Randy Orton and Logan Paul. That's a direction. Drew
I can't say
McIntyre.
I care about either of those matches.
I know I can't get into like a AJ Styles match like I used to,
No.
because he'll be fine. It'll be a fine match, but it's like I'm not like thinking it's going to be incredible. Um, and Randy Orton, Logan Paul, I don't know. It'll be fine. Randy Orton's the type where like everything he does is fine and even good, but he is not flashy at all.
No. That will
His
be an
matches do not stand
aggressively
out.
okay 3-star match at best.
Yes, it will be an okay match. It won't be bad, but I don't know if it'll be good. We'll
Mm.
see. But yeah,
I
those
the
are my
one
thoughts
thing
on
I'll
Elimination
say
Chamber.
the one thing I'll say about the women's chamber match, I did feel like Tiffany Stratton did come across like as a
She's coming
star,
across
you
like a
know?
star. Like I noticed it on that show, and then last week on SmackDown, she also got a really big reaction. So something's clicking there. I mean, she's always had that. She's always had something, and I thought she would make it good on the main roster when I saw her in NXT, and it's coming across. She's coming across as a star on TV now, so I think she'll be something big in the next few
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. I think that she's pretty much got everything down in terms of a look, in
Yeah,
terms of presentation, and just like she looks like a competent wrestler, which is astonishing for someone who's only been in the business like three
I
years.
thought when they called her up, I thought she would probably need another year. I think she's adapting really quick though, in terms of in-ring work. I think she's adapting really well.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I still think that's like what she needs to work on, but I think beyond that, she's charismatic and she comes off as a star, and they should go with it.
Yeah. Look, it just comes down to what the booking strategy is over the next year or two. But I'm not worried about her. I think she'll do all right.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like, you look at someone like Bianca Belair, who's just a slam dunk, and it kind of feels like they've dropped the ball with her over the last year or so.
She kind of seems like lost in the shuffle.
Yeah,
I always thought that they were going to do her and Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, but then Charlotte got injured.
yeah.
So they went with Bayley and Io Sky.
Which just feels
So
like for the Rumble winner match, that match is ice cold.
yeah, like you think
Yeah,
it'd be a little bit more hotter when they did the churn,
yeah.
but it's kind of gotten cold in recent weeks.
I don't think that's going to main event either night of WrestleMania. I'm going to say that
No,
much.
I think The Rock is headlining night one with that tag match, and Cody and Roman at night two.
Right. I guess we should talk about that to some
Sure.
degree. There was the whole like WrestleMania presser thing, and Cody
Yeah.
saying 1 week, "Oh, Rock, you can have Roman at Mania," and then at the
Then they went
presser
in complete
saying,
180.
and I don't know. I mean, you could say to some degree, bringing The Rock in and doing all this is smart. He obviously is as big of a movie star as you can get. But I do wonder, like, for our generation that grew up watching The Rock when we were, in our like mid-teens or whatnot, I have to imagine that for a lot of us at this point, his whole shtick is quite tiresome. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the younger generations that maybe saw his stuff in passing, and obviously every time he comes back he gets a huge reaction, but I'm not feeling any of this at all. And
It's a
partly it's
weird
also just
thing.
where I am with WWE at this point, and I guess the kind of the circumstances around some of this in the kind of like the non-wrestling part of it that just feels a bit ugh. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Well,
Last year with Cody and Roman, and I guess part of it is because like the whole, well, we were still in the post Vince to some degree, but obviously things now are even that much worse. But at
yeah.
least like the booking of that was just like Cody won the Rumble and Mania's going to come and we're going to do it there and that's it. You know?
Yeah. For The Rock, I listen to his stuff and it feels very dated. It feels like he's cutting in a promo from the Attitude Era. And there's a lot of things in the Attitude Era that doesn't age well today. And he's saying these lines about Phoenix smoking crack and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm listening to it and it just feels like from a different era. It's not even like a PG versus TV-14 thing. It just feels like wrestling promos, WWE promos. They've changed a lot in the last 20 years, and it feels like when Rock comes out and he says these things, it's like you're taking a time machine and going back to 2001, where all of this was really clever. And the delivery of the Rock's promos are enough to where he's one of the most charismatic guys in the history of pro wrestling. So I can listen to The Rock say these things and think, well, that's fine, but it feels just very dated. But it also feels like just something completely from the past, and it feels kind of archaic. And there's so many other people who could probably walk over him with all those catchphrases and stuff. But I mean, the build so far, well, they're sure talking a lot. Seth Rollins has some lines. It's kind of an example. The Rock has this Cody Crybabies line, and then Seth on this past Monday's Raw was talking about Diarrhea Dwayne, and it's like this feels so old and so like something that Vince McMahon would force him to say. It all feels like this nostalgic era of like 2000, 2001 pro wrestling where people said things that they would not say today. And even the way the promos are being delivered, it just feels so dated. But you know, this show is going to do tremendous. The Rock being there is going to make this a very successful show. Obviously, you look at the ratings, and SmackDown's ratings have been super up since The Rock started appearing on shows, especially during his segments. So it's not like it's the wrong direction to go in terms of business, but like in terms of getting me excited about these matches, they're taking up a lot of time and they're saying a lot of nothing leading to these matches to fill time and to get appearances in and all that. I think it could be better, but this is what you're going to get from The Rock, especially if he's going heel. He's going to get his lines about crack and Rudy Poo and you know all of his catchphrases. He's going to get them all in there, and it's going to sound old and dated, but that's what he does. That's how he got over, and people still are connecting with him, even whether it's through him being a face or a heel or whatever. But he's still resonating with the audiences, so not much you can do about that. But it does feel archaic in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wish. I get it. Like, I get it. Night one, you have The Rock there. It's obviously gonna do a shit ton of money, and I guess the thing that I find very funny is that for however many years now, we were like, okay, at some point they're gonna do Rock and Roman. We had this big dream match. We're gonna do Rock and Roman, and Roman can't lose the belt yet because we need to do Rock and Roman. We've sacrificed however many stars because we've got to do Rock and Roman. And now we have Rock and Roman, and we're not doing Rock and Roman because we can do this tag match and then do Rock and Roman and Cody. So it's like, what the fuck are we doing? It's quite funny that we've got to this point where like you were actually going to do that. You had this match, you had it banked. And in fairness, to some degree, I guess you maybe can give credit to The Rock that he kind of saw the lay of the land and saw that this match was going to get booed out of the building if they were going to do it, and they changed course. And if that is the case, then it's like, all right, well, at least they have the awareness and recognition that they wouldn't be able to do this match.
They would have been fighting with the fans hard if they went with that match.
Yeah.
And it would have it would remind me a lot of 2015 when they fought really hard to not have Daniel Bryan headline WrestleMania, and then they finally relented. For them, for this year, they turned that around less than a week. They immediately went back to Cody and Roman. So
yeah,
at least in that you can give credit to them for that.
The Mania card in general, and again, part of it is just kind of my disinterest with the product in general, but I'm not vibing with this year. Even last year, my interest was fairly similar, but there were a couple of matches like the triple threat with Sheamus, Gunther, and Drew McIntyre. You at least kind of felt like that would deliver, and it did. Seth and Logan Paul, I guess, was interesting, and then that match did actually turn out to be pretty good. And again, like the whole Roman and Cody thing was built with enough spectacle to it, and they were able to kind of navigate the whole thing with Sami Zayn in a fairly effective manner, where they didn't turn on Cody, and they did do the tag match in night one with the Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Like there was enough stuff last year over the 2 nights, but I'm just not feeling anything with this year so far. What about you?
I mean, I do want to see that main event between Roman and Cody, and I want to see how that does. But beyond that, it's like they're kind of slow walking these other matches.
Partially out of like a morbid curiosity to see if they'll fucking beat Cody again 2 years in a row?
I think it'll be a really good match. the match last year was really good. Like think about the last match last year was that it was really good until they did the finish. That was well on its way to becoming a classic match until they
Oh, it was a
did
great
that
match.
finish.
It was a
Yeah,
great match for sure.
and they'll have another really great match this year. Um, but I don't know. Anything beyond that, it's like I mean, I guess I'm kind of interested in seeing how the tag match goes, but I don't know. Am I interested in seeing like a 50-year-old Rock wrestle? I guess it's now or never because they want to do that Rock and Roman match really badly, and The Rock is a very busy man. Um, I guess that would be like his last major match whenever they do it, but I don't know. I'm not like really like super interested in that match. Um, Anything else on the card? I mean, like I don't know. Nothing's like really clicking with me. Like I'll watch these shows and they will probably be a lot of good matches, but I don't know. The build so far for WrestleMania doesn't feel like super hot like it should be.
Yeah.
But we'll see. There's still like a month left of yeah, about a month left
Yeah, we still got time. We still
of
need to
build.
figure out who
So
Gunther's opponent will be.
yeah,
Um,
really, that should be Chad Gable.
you would think based off of this Monday, yes. Because otherwise, if they
They
don't
did
do that
that
after
match
Chad's
a few
promo, then what are we
yeah.
doing? You know?
They did that match a few months ago where it's like he came really close to winning, and then they never went anywhere with it, and they just kind of continued on with their own thing. It's like Chad, like they're probably going to do Sammy and Gunther, but like really, Chad Gable should be the one who beats Gunther. I feel like that's the match, and I feel like that's the person who should beat Gunther, but I don't know if they'll do it.
Yeah,
I guess
because
we'll find out on Monday.
you do have the issue. You have a bunch of people um, that currently have nothing lined up. You got Sammy, you got Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Um, there's one or two more. I mean, like Bianca Belair has nothing lined up. Um, so, which is it's kind of crazy. You got two nights, and these people don't have any specific direction yet. But we still, yeah, you mentioned we have a few weeks yet, so hopefully we'll get something figured out for the rest of the kind of upper card. Um, do you know the one thing they still need to do at some point? And I guess like if Cody does win at Mania, I guess at some point you can finally do the Damien cash in. But I can't imagine you're gonna have Priest actually cash in and win. Because that would be crazy if they had Cody win and then Damien cashed in shortly afterwards. But anyway, we could be here for a while fantasy booking. So um, NXT Vengeance, the only thing really for me to kind of talk about that's worth mentioning is that the main event of Trick Williams and Ilya Dragunov was a pretty solid match, and it was solid in the fact that it didn't feel like an NXT match. It felt like a bit of a clusterfuck in some ways, which is partially to be expected because of the inexperience of Trick Williams, but
Hmm.
also because of the physicality and accidental blood.
Yeah.
It ended up becoming like a very physical match that you expect from an Ilya Dragunov, and I haven't watched enough Trick Williams to know exactly what his kind of style is, but I can't imagine or don't think it's what came up in this match.
Yeah, it was a different kind of match, very much physical. All of Ilya Dragunov's matches are. Williams is someone who's very charismatic, and I think is going to be a future star. I mean, he's already super over with this crowd. He's one of the most over acts on NXT. His work, I don't think is there yet, but he's improved dramatically in the last few months, and he's going to be a big star, I think. And he looked really good here in this match against Dragunov. And we'll see. I really think he should have won the title because it makes the most sense to do. And we know that what happened after this match where Carmelo Hayes turned on Trick, and that really should be the main event of Stand and Deliver because they have put so much time into this match, this storyline with him and Williams, and it should be like a big high profile main event match. And for whatever reason, they didn't put the title on him or Carmelo Hayes, so it's kind of weird. But the match itself, though, here at Vengeance Day was pretty good.
Yeah, I have as many issues as I've documented in the past in terms of NXT and its presentation. And most of the show I found pretty intolerable to watch. But with Ilya Dragunov on top, there's at least something there for me to bite into. But then at the same time, you could make the argument that he is completely wasted on NXT, and should probably be on the main roster.
Yeah, he should be on the main roster like the day after WrestleMania when he loses the title or something. Because I think, um, I could see Tony D'Angelo winning the title too. That's the main event of Stand and Deliver.
I can't believe that
Tony
is a fucking
D'Angelo
main
is
event
good
of Stand
though.
and Deliver.
Tony D'Angelo is good though. He's improved dramatically in the last year too.
I will
He
take
does
your
have
word
something.
for it.
He does have something. That act does have something. So I'm curious to see how that match goes. I think it'll be very good. But yeah. Anything else on that? I don't remember anything else on Vengeance Day. I only rated that match.
I mean,
Anything else was.
you had Laya Valkyrie and Roxanne Perez, and you had Lola Vice cash
Oh
in
yeah,
hit
yeah, yeah.
her. Like,
I thought that
the
was
smart
fine
thing to do as a
until
wrestler is to cash in the middle of the match.
yeah,
Or at the beginning
that
of the
was really
match.
dumb for her. I guess she's still very new because you'd think she would cash in after the match, but I guess it played into the role of turning Roxanne Perez heel because she's a heel now, which is really weird. I don't know why. She's a very natural babyface.
Look,
Maybe
I
she'll be
mean,
good as a
hey,
heel, but
so
like,
was Sami Zayn.
well, that's because Vince McMahon sucks as a booker. And it really was towards the end. I mean, he took Bailey and Sami Zayn, who were the biggest baby faces on NXT, and made them heels. So, and he could have booked a babyface if his life depended on it. So, I am not surprised. I'm more surprised by this move, but I guess they want people to be both babyface and heel before they get called up. For some people, for Braun Breaker, they wanted that run of him as a heel before he got called up.
Yeah.
Roxanne Perez is someone who should have been called up months ago. She was ready very quickly. So, I don't know. We'll see how she does as a heel. Not compelling to me, honestly, though.
No. Nope.
There, Valkyria, she's good, but like I'm kind of in the same boat as Bryan Alvarez as to when she has to act. She's very all over the place.
Yeah.
Very dramatic and not natural in terms of acting.
That speaks to a lot of NXT performers, to be
And
quite
that
honest.
does speak to a lot of people. A lot of people there, but for her, and she's got the work down. She was very good very early, and I know she's had a long run on the indie scene in the UK, or she was well known in that regard. So
I saw her live a couple of times in Ireland for sure. Yep.
Yeah, so she's good, but like, the acting, just work on that. Be more natural. And unfortunately, she's with Tatum Paxley, and again with Brian Albert, he hates that storyline with her and Tatum Paxley, where Tatum Paxley really likes her, and you're supposed to think she's in love with her or something, and like, I don't know, it's not good. But the worst thing on NXT by leaps and miles for me, and I can't stand him, is Joe Gacy. He has another new gimmick where he's like a goofy guy, goofy weirdo. That's like I cannot stand him. I cannot stand his
it's
matches.
still better than when he was just a cult weirdo.
I thought that was better.
Really? Interesting.
Like both of them suck. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
This is 10 times worse than the Schism. I feel. I feel like it's 10 times worse.
I think I hated Schism because that dragged grizzled young vets down into something that like was so far below their abilities.
I mean, I'm not saying that the schism was good. I'm just
No,
saying that
I know.
That the Joe Gacy gimmick is that bad.
Yeah,
To where I miss the days of the schism,
boy.
which it really says a lot. But it's the guy who does comedy and nobody laughs. That's the worst kind of comedy to do, is to be the goofy guy that nobody's into, but yet you do goofy things because you want the perception to be like everybody's behind on the joke, but nobody's laughing with Joe Casey. They're just not reacting.
And
And
that is always
that's
the
10
worst thing.
times
Like
worse
any
that
reaction is better than no reaction.
yeah, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like they had that asylum match on NXT this past Tuesday, and everybody worked hard. Dijak did this insane moonsault off the cage. But it's like this is so, and Dijak is also guilty of having some of the silliest sketches where he's backstage with Joe Gacy and they're like in some asylum. Like apparently Dijak has his like own, like, I don't know, like a prison backstage or something where he traps his opponents. And they did a sketch with him and Joe Gacy that was just terrible, where Joe Gacy was like in this straitjacket or something, and uh, Dijak was just there, and there's a lawyer there, the lawyer wrestler Lusa Crucifino or whatever, and Crucifino's like, "You can't do this. This is legal," and he's like, "This is my own brand of justice." That's what Dijak said, something to the effect of something like that. It's just very goofy 1980s um bad guy character
I was
that
thinking
feels very dated.
2009 era TNA. Like, like real in the thick of it, Vince Russo era TNA, where everyone has a character
Mm.
and it's usually not for the better.
Yeah, that is kind of like NXT. But in NXT, you see people improve because at first everybody's given a gimmick. Like when Roxanne Perez was first there, she was like given like a gamer gimmick, and Cora Jade was given like a skateboarder gimmick. Like everybody gets a gimmick at first because you're new to this acting thing. You have to act. You have to develop a character, and over time you gradually lose that once you start to like get things. But I don't know why Dijak was given this goofy, like 80s villain with the glasses kind of gimmick.
Oh, because
I don't
otherwise he
think
was just a tall guy.
yeah, well, yeah,
Like
he
Dijak
was
never
just
really,
a really good tall guy.
yeah,
He
like
was really
Dijak never
good in
really
the
had a
ring.
gimmick. It was just that he was a tall guy, but he
No,
was also very
he was
athletic
like
and a really good
what was
worker.
his retribution name? T-Bar.
T-Bar, yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
T-Bar.
yeah. That was good.
Yeah,
That was great.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find NXT to be pretty intolerable, but
There's
there's an
moments
audience
where
for
it's
it.
good. Like I always like seeing new talent developing in front of my eyes every week, so I kind of
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like forgive them if they don't have like the best matches. But some of the sketches and some of the gimmicks are just really goofy and dumb,
I mean,
and
here's the thing.
they're not
A
going to get
lot
over on the main roster.
a lot of the problems with NXT and a lot of the problem with the performers they have on NXT is not the fault of the performers. Now, obviously, to
Mm.
some degree, it is they are the ones doing the performance. But a lot of that you have to place on the blame of the people in charge and the creative for putting these people in these positions to have these god awful backstage
I
sketches,
don't think it's a good idea to have developmental on the USA Network in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, yes and no, because I think if you had the the 2012 to I don't know 2017 2018 era, or the kind of original incarnation of NXT. While yes, you obviously did have characters on there. You think back to the likes of Enzo and Kaz and that kind
Yeah.
of thing, or even fucking the vaudevillains and that kind of thing. You did have those characters, but partially, um, those were just characters that were just better naturally suited to those performers, and certainly in the cases of like Enzo and Kaz, were just extensions of their real life personalities.
Yeah.
Um, But like, even the Vaudevillains did feel a little bit out of place in NXT, but I think, NXT at the time was still such a brand new thing, and that gimmick was at least entertaining enough that you kind of look past the silliness of it. But just, a lot of the gimmicks and a lot of the performers and basically a lot of the backstage sketches didn't really exist. You didn't have these fucking god awful backstage skits between people that just should not be in front of the camera pretending to do this thing called acting. So the whole point of wrestling is the hide the weaknesses, enhance the strengths. If someone is actually good in front of the camera, then by all means put in front of the camera. But if someone like, Obafemi at the moment, his whole thing is just that he's big and he's mean and he just beats people in a couple of minutes.
He has presence though.
Yeah, but that's the
He has
thing.
good presence.
He has good presence, and so they're showcasing the strengths, which is his presence, and he murders people in a couple of minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's what you should be doing. But then you've got like fucking Dragon Lee, who he's like one of the best high flyers in the world, and he is wrestling
Can't do high
like
flying.
any other fucking like name your WWE wrestler of choice. It's just so I
It's
put
good.
so much of
It's
this.
fine, but it's not like I've seen so much better Dragon Lee stuff elsewhere.
Yeah. So I put so much of the NXT products in terms of the problems, not on the performers, even though their performances are terrible, but I put it on the people that are putting those people in those positions
The
to
thing with it
show.
is that everybody has to work the same style. Everybody has to do a character. Everybody has to act. And for some people, they're way better at acting than wrestling, and vice versa. And they get exposed on TV that way. And I mean, you could blame it on the style more than anything. Where WWE, you're required to talk, you're required to act, you're required to work a certain way, and you can do all those things and be okay at it, but you don't stand out. And that is a problem.
Someone who did stand out to me, and that's a violent segue into AEW, was Hechicero, who is someone that I had never seen perform before.
I've seen him on the Fantastic Mania tours, and I always thought he was pretty good.
Maybe I saw him there, but I forgot about him and didn't register him. But him and Bryan Danielson had a match on Collision a fair few weeks ago now, and there's this whole thing that you get with a certain segment of bad faith actors online who bang on about, oh, you brought in this person who doesn't wrestle for this promotion, and I don't know who he is, and I don't know what I should think or why I should care about them.
They don't explain it. That's what I hear.
And this guy comes out, and he has this kick-ass like synth-based style theme song, which is awesome. He's
cool
literally
entrance.
holding. He's
like
holding
a rock on fire or something,
fucking
right?
rock on fire,
Yeah.
which I think Riccaboni explains as like used to cleanse the ring before his match. And he's going in there and he's going to face Bryan Danielson. And the announcers are telling me that he is quite similar to Danielson in terms of like his technical abilities. That's it. That's all I fucking need. And those two went out there for like 15 minutes and just had a tremendous match.
They had a really, really good match. I mean, Danielson's one of the best in the world, and Hechicero was right there with him, and they had an excellent match.
Wrestling is not that difficult, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. Like if I go in and I see somebody, like for these CMLL guys who have been on the shows in recent weeks, if someone comes in and they're great, I'm like, wow, this guy is great. I want to know more about him. I don't want to go, oh, they don't tell me who he is. How am I supposed to get into this match when I don't know who it is? It's like if they are good, they are going to show you that they're really good wrestlers. And you should get into them by how they work and how they present themselves. And, wrestling, like you said, wrestling isn't that hard. Like, there are a lot of people who I haven't seen before. If I go to CMLL, I don't know a lot of people on the roster, but, like, if they're good, if they stand out, I want to know more about them. I don't want to type on the internet, oh, I don't know who this is. Why isn't AEW telling me who this is? How am I supposed to get into this? Who? Like things like that. And it's like, those are bad faith people who don't want to give AEW a chance to begin with, or CMLL, or anything that isn't WWE, and they just want to be bad faith actors who rattle people by going, oh, I don't know who this is. Well, like, you know, there's so much wrestling out there right now. Like, people sometimes take for granted that 10, 15 years ago, if I wanted to see CMLL, if I wanted to see New Japan, if I wanted to see anything that wasn't WWE or TNA, I would have to trade tapes with people, or I would have to buy DVDs off people somewhere. And now there's all of these wrestlers who can travel all around the world. AEW has relationships with so many promotions in Mexico and Japan that they come over here and they're on TV, and I think it's the coolest thing ever. Because you don't see this thing with WWE. And TNA kind of did it, but then Vince Russo took over, and enough enough said about that. But yeah, now we get all of these wrestlers coming in on a weekly basis, and people snub their nose at it. It's like, you don't know how good you had it. You don't know how good you have it, because for longtime fans like me, and I think you too, it was very hard to watch these wrestlers 10, 15
Yep.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was very hard. So yeah, it's so weird how people react, but it's the way social media works. It's tribalism, and these algorithm warriors who go on like and say, "Oh, I don't understand this. I don't understand that. AEW is so bad." And I hear the Eric Bischoff types who are like, it's popular to bury AEW because that's how you get views. That's how you get clicks, and it's like, whatever.
There's just this
It,
very weird like subsect of people who are like almost kind of celebrating that they don't know
yeah,
something about wrestling, and it's like, all right, well, guess what? Like, it's never been easier to fucking find out about
yeah.
someone. Like, if you want to go find out about a wrestler, there's probably at least one match you can find on YouTube of theirs, in some capacity, or someone's done a fucking MV on them or whatnot. Like, it's not that difficult. Cage Match
It's
has a
and so
profile on
easy if
most
I
wrestlers.
cage match. YouTube, if you type in Hechicero, I am sure you will come up with a lot of matches with Hechicero and see what he's about. It's so easy now to look up somebody. It's so easy now, and it's like people are still complaining. It's like, if you're complaining about something, if you're complaining about AEW, there's a good chance that you're not even going to give AEW a chance to begin with. So why are you bitching? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. So that's that. Yeah, but I thought this match was tremendous. Danielson is, for what is supposedly his last year of retirement, he's having a hell of a year currently.
Yeah.
Um, now I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about like Sting's retirement tour, or you want to kind of
Sure.
lead that to Revolution next month. But obviously, like in February, him and Darby Allin did win the AEW tag team titles, defeating Big Bill and Ricky Starks. And this whole like run of Sting, starting back at the end of 2020, I believe it was that Winter is Coming. Um, up until that point, people just kind of figured that Sting was done. His last match was against Seth Rollins, Night Champions 2015, um, which was, would have been a sad way for the man's career to end.
That would have been sad.
But
But
to
he
come,
yeah.
sorry,
No, I was probably gonna say what you're gonna say. That
okay,
he came back and worked his ass off
yeah,
and had great matches with just about everyone on that AEW roster. And hats off to him because he ended things the way he wanted to. Like that match with Seth Rollins, that probably wasn't what he envisioned when he signed up with WWE. And everybody wanted that match with the Undertaker. And of course, there's the one person who didn't get it, um, and he ended up doing like that match with Triple H at WrestleMania, where it was like NWO versus DX, and it's like the Attitude Era ended like 10, 15 years ago before that, like, and they're still rehashing it. Well, that the whole run in WWE was weird, and TNA, we all know how TNA was back then, but so it was. I thought it was really cool to see Sting come and work his ass off and have all these great matches and great moments. I mean, we all remember seeing like Sting is 60 something and he's diving off a balcony or he's diving off a ladder or you know something wacky and wild and you know hats off to him because he didn't need to do this at his age and a
Yeah.
lot of people wouldn't do it at his age, but yet he went out there and busted his ass. And I mean, we'll get to his retirement match, but that also he worked hard and he had a great match with the Young Bucks. So yeah, I'm. It was really cool. It was really cool to see him have this really great last run, and he ended it the way he wanted to. And you know, you can't ask for more than that. I hope he's not coming back, but it would be really hard to come back after this.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It
I think
was.
some like Sting. I think this is it.
I think so. I look. You end your career in the middle of the ring with your two sons,
Yeah,
uh, a
who look just like
champion
you.
who look just like you, dressed up like fucking early
Like
'90s
when
Surfer Sting and NW Wolfpack
yeah,
Sting.
when the one came out dressed like Sting from 1990, it's like, was that Sting? Oh
Yeah.
no, it was his son. Like for a split second, I kind of thought, is that
But
Sting?
just the perfect combination of treating a wrestler with this legendary career with respect, um, but not over pushing him, not pushing him beyond his means, not overexposing him. Like I think it was 28 matches. I think he was to but the end. And you know, if you want to make the argument that he didn't put over anyone, I guess you could make the argument. But at the same time, it wasn't that it didn't really feel like he ever was like put over anyone that their career um was sacrificed for it. You know, like Ricky Starks and Big Bill, they're going to be fine. And if anything, I'm sure they were perfectly happy to fucking like to eat a pin to Sting of all things. You know, so um, just that one of the better handlings of an in ring career. You know, because I think back to like. Even though the match with Flair and Michaels at Mania, which obviously wouldn't end up being Flair's last match, but that whole like storyline of like, oh, okay, now the next time you lose Flair, you're going to retire, and that whole thing just felt a bit stupid, and you know there could have been
It
a better
felt
way
kind of
of doing that.
contrived.
Yeah, very
And I
contrived. Yeah,
remember like leading to the match, they did like a lot of DQ finishes, and you know they really like, or you know they would have like a match and they'd say, oh well, this one doesn't count. It's like, okay, but
yeah,
you know the Flair match and the retirement ceremony after was like one of the best things in a long time
yeah,
in
yeah.
WWE.
And
But
even like even Shawn Michaels one, that one felt weird just because it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. You know, it didn't feel
yeah,
like
like
this was a guy winding
when
down
he
his
did his
career.
ceremony, I felt like he was going to come back.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why,
Like that was
but
someone, and obviously he'd taken a break between Mania and SummerSlam the year before he retired, but
yeah,
he was still basically acting as like a full-time wrestler for the most part. So that one kind of felt weird. This one just felt absolutely spot on, and there was a really tremendous. There's a Twitter account called Tiger Style Pro who did a like an MV using Metallica's Wherever I May Roam.
mm,
And crucially, I think the one thing out of anything of all of this is Metallica and wrestling seem to go really, really well because Seek and Destroy as a theme song, even in like late 90s WCW, it's just a sick fucking theme song
it is.
to
It is.
use.
It's a great song.
You know, like here
Enter
when
Sandman.
Enter Salmon, of
Oh,
course. And when that started playing at Wembley for All In, which I was at live, like the audience just lost their goddamn minds, and
yeah.
me included. So yeah, the Tiger Star Pro, go and check that out if you can. And you know, I think actually the one thing that the glaring issue of any of this is that it speaks to again the problem with WWE owning the WCW library, because you know all of the video footage of Sting was either from
That's a good chunk of his career.
his New Japan work or his TNA work or his AEW work, and you know
I don't
there's
think he
a
even
big
did
chunk of
his
like 10
TNA
years
work.
not there. So
That video I think was mostly New Japan stuff and photos from his like major runs, like when he was Wolfpack Sting and all that, and when he came down from the rafters and stuff.
Yeah.
They showed pictures but not video footage, and they had New Japan footage and they had AEW footage, and that was about it. But yeah, that was a cool video. It would have been nice if WWE would have sent footage, and I don't know about TNA. You know, when it comes to TNA, Sting was there for a long, long time. But if I had to think of like moments in his run there, it's like what's there? Like when he was Joker Sting, you know, like
It is kind
there
of
wasn't like a
interesting.
whole
That
lot.
that is the thing that people remember more than anything
That's what
else.
people remember the most is
Yeah.
Joker Sting.
Yeah, and because it's also interesting as well. Like you look at his TNA run, and there's not really that many like memorable matches. He had the stretch of the Bound for Glory main events that he did, but none of them like the Kurt Angle one was probably the best of them. But like you think of his TNA run, and I couldn't say there's like five like absolutely must see matches with Sting, and it's also interesting as well. Like Sting in TNA, from like the business aspects of it, it never really felt like he did anything significant for them in terms of being a draw or like making the company money. Um, and you know, I'm not here to be like a Debbie Downer or anything, but there is certain elements of those bits and pieces where you think about like the legacy of Sting, and you kind of put this asterisk next to him in terms of like everything post WCW. And look, and some of that is not on him. Like, you know, a lot of the TNA stuff, as is the case with so many wrestlers, is down to the fucking horrendous booking of one Vincent Russo, and or otherwise. And maybe under another booker, you know, maybe things would have been different. But it is something that I do think about with Sting. And you know, I didn't grow up with like with 90s Sting at all. I tweeted the other day that my first memory of Sting was him being set on fire in front of the Titantron by Vampiro.
Funny enough, that's probably mine too. When he had that match with Vampiro and they battled on top of the Titantron or whatever, and he was set on fire and pushed off the Titantron and fell to his death or whatever. And it's like,
yeah.
Well,
And there was
that was
the
my
match
memory
they
of
had in
him
a
for a long
graveyard
time.
as well.
Yeah, they had a graveyard match too, right?
Yeah, 2000 era WCW is a haunting time.
Yeah, and then my only other memory of him before TNA was when he showed up randomly at the end of Nitro, the last one, and they had a match with Sting, and it was sad because Flair was out of shape and Sting wasn't, but they had kind of like a by the numbers match, and that was like the final match of Nitro.
Yeah.
Final match in WCW.
So but you know, we'll talk more about Sting next month with Revolution, but you know, in terms of a send off, you can't really get better than that. So
yeah, it was great.
Props to you, Steve Borden. The last thing before we bounce out of here that I've got, Revolution Pro Wrestling from the UK had their high stakes 2024 show, based out of what venue did they use? Actually, I don't remember. Crystal Palace National Sports Centre, which is somewhere I've been, is in London, and this was, you know, a fairly kind of highly touted show because this was going to be like the last independence match of William Ospreay's career before he went off to AEW as a full-time contracted wrestler. And there were a couple of big matches on this card, and I won't go through the whole card. But actually, I'm just having a look there. Jesus Christ. Dave. Okay. So Dave has given the main event 6 stars between Michael Oku and
Seems pretty good. I've wanted to watch it, but I have not had the time to watch it because apparently it's like a 45-minute match.
It's interesting. It is a long match, but it doesn't feel like a long match.
That's what I've heard.
You know, the thing about this match, and I think it is a great match. I went 4 3/4. I think it's absolutely like a match you can check out. But there is something because it has elements in it of the booking patterns that you get in like a sports entertainment style main event, where you know, the female valet, she gets knocked over, and there's a lot of drama, and there's a lot of that kind of sports entertainment style shenanigans. And there's something about that style of wrestling and that style of a match that I don't really think ever successfully translates to a kind of indie style promotion, or a promotion like Revolution Pro Wrestling, which I think is a great promotion, but I do think that its production is fucking horrendous and has been horrendous like since day one. And it's kind of baffling that they've been around as long as they have. And I've spoken to Andy Corner before, and he obviously has like a great mind for the business, but like that promotion has been around for as long as like Progress Wrestling, and even you know, Progress has a fucking myriad of issues. They got their shit together in terms of their production, and their production like during their heyday of like the mid 20, you know, like 2014, 2015 and onwards, they got their production sorted out. And other than their commentary got incredibly obnoxious, the volumes were tolerable, the crowd volumes were tolerable, the video quality was like you know, one of the better kind of video productions for an indie out there. Like the Progress Wrestling production at a time was putting anything on the American indie circuits to shame, quite honestly. And it's just astonishing that Rev Pro still have not, either they're leaning into it as a bit at this point, or I don't even know what it is, because surely this company is like financially secure enough that they could upgrade their cameras and I don't know, just spend 5 minutes just using a fucking sound mixer to figure out like what the volumes need
If
to
you
be
have
for
the
the commentators.
opportunity to improve your streaming and improve your production values, you should probably do it.
Yeah, because like,
Because the one thing that I think is like, I think people will gravitate more towards wrestling which has a better presentation.
of course,
Because if you
absolutely.
remember a few years ago during the pandemic, Raw was doing those shows at the Performance Center and they were down.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until they did the what's the name of
The
the
Thunderdome.
stadium? Thunderdome. They came up with the Thunderdome idea, and they did stuff in front of arenas with their normal setup. The ratings jumped. People will gravitate more towards a very nice looking production than having like really great wrestling matches in front of um with like a blackened out look, or like a low down, you know, grimy look.
Yeah.
It will gravitate more towards the better production values.
And here's the thing as well, like Revolution Pro Wrestling at this point, they are you know, the most prominent promotion in the UK. I think they have a, I'd say they have the most visibility. I don't have the raw numbers, but I feel like to the kind of wider wrestling sphere, um, they're the most prominent. And they have this relationship with New Japan. They now have this relationship with CMLL. Like they're doing a Fantastic Mania tour in the UK. Um, and they have some sort of relationship with AEW as well, because Orange Cassidy was in the show, Tony Khan was in attendance.
Yeah, it was in
Um,
attendance.
how much of that was just because like it was Will Ospreay's last match? Who knows? You know, maybe he was just in town to watch Fulham that weekend. There's also that. I did see a very enjoyable picture seeing Orange Cassidy a Premier League match and probably just having no fucking idea what was going on.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're going to have this level of exposure that's coming towards you, and you can make these arrangements, you just got to get your production sorted out. And I do
Yeah.
think that I don't really have any issues with the match and the structure and the layout and the kind of the sort of like epic quality that they wanted to kind of throw at it. I think that was all there, but I do think that there's always a certain bar that Rev Pro can hit if they want to do these more like sports entertainment orientated style matches, because they just don't translate that barrier when you've got these kind of levels of production quality. And also as well, you know, like God bless Michael Oku, but he's, you know, 200 pounds soaking wet. And there are elements of that style of wrestling as well that just, you know, he has a character and he has a particular style, which is being the underdog. Um, And there were just elements of the storytelling that, while they made sense in terms of like how to tell a story in a wrestling match, didn't work for me because of the fact that these two wrestlers. But in terms of, again, purely just the spectacle and the athleticism, all that kind of stuff that you get from a Will Ospreay match, it is worth checking out for sure. But I didn't see it as a 5-star match for the reasons that I put out there. So yeah, there is that. Luke Jacobs and JJ Gale. Luke Jacobs is someone who's been making a name for himself on the wrestling scene for a few years. He was part of a team called the Young Guns. I think they were called the Young Guns. But his tag partner, Ethan Allen, I think was his name. He was out, or still is out, with a pretty debilitating leg injury. I don't know the exact specifics of it. So Luke Jacobs has been kind of wrestling on his own, and he's kind of like a British Tomohiro Ishii. He's, very kind of like thick, burly type wrestler, but he's still quite young. And him and Tomohiro Ishii did have a match last year that is worth going out your way to see if you haven't. But him and JJ Gale is not someone I'm too familiar with. Utterly atrocious haircut, atrocious mustache combination. But these two just fucking went for it. And even though they had like one slightly blown spot early on in the match, this is just one of those things where you have like two young wrestlers and you just let them go out there and do their thing. And you're kind of seeing a little bit of that New Japan with God, names are escaping me this evening. Jesus. Yota Tsuji and Yu Yamura, where you just kind of letting these like these are like the next stars of the future. So you just let them go out there for 15 minutes and do their thing. And you was kind of getting it with these two here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Jacobs pops up on like a New Japan tour at some point. Like I think he'd be perfect for a Best of the Super Juniors tournament run this year, I think in particular. So this was definitely worth seeing. And Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Connor Mills, and Connor Mills is someone who I've never really seen as like having any kind of star quality. He was a bit skinny. He had a god awful fucking like braided haircut sort of thing, but he shaved his hair, dyed his hair blonde, and this was like the best performance I've seen from him. Like he's kind of filled out a little bit. He's got a little bit more definition to him. Looks more like a wrestler's wrestler and not just like a kind of like skinny British indie dude. And this was like by far the best I've seen with him. And as usual, it's the kind of thing where you wrestle to Zack style of match, but like because he's British, he has like a lot of the same wrestling technical ability ingrained in him. And this was really worth going out of the way. And there was like 3 matches for sure that mean that this is probably a show that is worth checking out if for those 3 matches, if nothing else. So yeah, Rev Pro, like by far the best British promotion, but man, Andy, if you listen to this, and I know you're listening to this, spend a bit of money. I'm sure you've got it. Just get your cameras upgraded. Get a sound engineer to come in, like just once. Just put a bit of tape over whatever number is like the optimum volume that you and Gideon Gray should be at. Just leave that bit of tape there and never turn the dial up any louder than that. You don't have to do that. Because when you scream into your microphones and it blows my eardrums out, I don't want to watch the product anymore. So, Andy, you've been told.
Yeah. I haven't watched a ton of Rev Pro in a while, but yeah, this match was just the Ospreay and Oku match was just talked about so much. I need to watch it. So
Yeah, I definitely think
I will have to watch it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth going out of your way to see.
Ospreay
sure.
is shaping up to have like another all-time great wrestler of the year
Yep.
run.
Yep.
Because just based off, we're going to talk about next month, but Revolution and Dynamite this last week, wow. Like I've watched Will Ospreay since he debuted in New Japan, and he's always been an excellent wrestler. But he is taking it to a new level. And it's really astonishing to see just how good he is. And when he came out there on his debut at Revolution, he was over.
Yeah.
He was a big time star. I think this jump to AEW is the best thing for him because he's going to become a really big star. He's such a good wrestler. It's kind of undeniable. He should be at the very top immediately.
the thing I don't know if I say I worry about, but friend of the show, the Barry lad, made a I feel like a fairly poignant point, and that was that, like me and him, and I guess you as well. There's obviously issues with Will Ospreay in terms of as a person, and that's well
Hmm.
documented. But in terms of his
Yeah.
in-ring stuff, look, he's a tremendous wrestler. And the match he had at Revolution with Takeshita was fucking awesome. The match he had with Carl Fletcher, fucking awesome. But I do think there is something to this idea of like how often, how many matches in a row on television can Osprey do where like he has this just like completely empty the clip, empty the canister, throw everything to the wall? How often can you do that before the crowd go,
Or you break down.
like, well, not even just break down, but just before the crowd
And also
go,
the crowd.
because you think about like this promotion is built off of the back of the Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks and like the modern indie style that is, like an extension of what Will Ospreay does. That all comes back to what the Young Bucks are doing in terms of that, just like completely empty the canister video game style. And the crowd turned on the Young Bucks. The crowd got sick of the Young Bucks and that, and partially part of that is probably the whole CM Punk thing as well, where it has forced them to turn heel, and they're going to. We haven't seen exactly what their wrestling style is now at this point. I can't imagine it's going to be exactly the same as what it was before. So I do, from that aspect, I'm curious to see like what is the breaking limit with Will Ospreay in terms of trying to have these style of matches every week, and if the crowd will be receptive in the stadiums, in the arenas. Probably not going to be an issue, but I'll be curious to see from like a television ratings or whatnot, how that plays out. So it's just saying that Barry mentioned that I thought was an interesting point that I'll be curious to see over like the next 6 months. But hey, he's going to wrestle fucking Bryan Danielson next, so I'm sure we're fine for the time being.
I think that's gonna be a pretty good match.
I would think so.
Just a hunch.
So. Yeah.
That's something to look forward to.
That's it for me. You got anything else for February?
No, I think that's all the big highlights from February. We already got a lot of stuff to talk about for March, and I have a feeling we'll have a lot more as the weeks goes on.
All right. Well, before we bounce out of here, let me grab you and check with you, Brian, who your wrestler of the month for February 2024 would be.
Let me see. This is always the hardest part because I always have to think like who stood out the most this month. Looking at my February match ratings, and it's like there's a lot of notable matches, but like nobody like stands completely out. You know what? This is going to be like an out of left field kind of pick, but I'm really liking what Drew McIntyre's doing right now with his character on Raw. I think he's gone like his promos have been really good. He's had really good matches. He's not like the best wrestler, because I mean you could see that in AEW, but like in terms of where he's going in his direction with CM Punk and Seth Rollins and all this, I'm really interested in his character. So I think I might go with Drew McIntyre this month just because of that. So I think, yeah, like it's an out of left field pick. Like you can pick a lot of people in AEW who had like a bunch of great matches this month. You can also probably put in Bryan Danielson there. But I kind of like what Drew's been doing, and I kind of wanted to mention that this month. So
Yeah, no, that's
I'll go
fair.
with
Like
it.
Drew's been pretty consistent
Yeah.
across the board. I'm gonna cheat slightly because I'm gonna add the start of March into this, but I'm actually gonna go Sting.
Well,
Um,
if we added March, I'd go with Sting.
yeah, I do think like his promo that he cut backstage like 2 weeks before, um, where
Yeah.
there was that kind of real fire in him, and he was talking about how, he at one time thought that he was invincible, but now he knows that he's not. But while he's still here, he's going to give it everything that he's got, and just, I know we were talking earlier a little bit about like Sting in his career and whatnot, but the one thing like I'd say that man actually probably is like an underrated promo in terms of like if you're looking like some of the best promos in the business. I do think Sting is actually quite underrated. Because there's a believability, there's a conviction to him, which is interesting for this like 63-year-old man with face paint on. But he just, he kind of cuts through the bullshit, and I've always appreciated that about Sting. Like he is a really good promo, and the tag match where they won the titles was a great moment, and yeah, I think I'll go with Sting.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Your match of the month.
Well, since I haven't watched the two biggest matches everyone's talking about, I would probably go with Swerve and Hangman Page because they had a really good match at the start of February. I think it was at the start of February. Yeah, on the 7th of January.
It was, the 7th, yeah.
They had a really good match. I believe it went to a time limit draw.
Certainly
and it was a very good match. They've always had really good matches and good chemistry with one another. And this is the match that led to the triple threat match at Revolution, which also was pretty good. So that's the highest star rating I gave this month so far. I have to go back and look at those other two matches that were probably better, but I'll go with this just to be different.
I will go with Zack Sabre Jr., Bryan Danielson. I thought their match was just like an extension of their first match, but again, as mentioned, the additional feeling of this being like a chess match between just two of the best technical wrestlers in the world, and just an extra kind of layer of physicality as well. Just tremendous stuff. So thumbs up there for me. But finally, your promotion of February.
It's not New Japan. It's not WWE. So probably AEW again. They've had the most best matches on their TV shows. So it's kind of them by default.
Yeah, I think while I could go for Rev Pro because of a great show, I can't because of the production. So we're gonna go with AEW, and that's mainly just because I think the whole thing with Sting was just really well crafted. So, yep, that is that. So Brian, we are done for February 2024. As always, thank you so much for anyone that is listening to our silly little show in this corner of the internet.
Yes.
As always, you can find us on Twitter at Lithium Project and at BR26. I have a game that's on Steam. It's called Axes, AXYZ. You should go wishlist it right now. Probably going to plug that every month until January. Brian has, and Brian is someone you should be listening to and following. So he's a trendsetter. So if he says it, you should go and wishlist it right now. But that'll do for now. So have a wonderful month. By the time we get back to you, Mania's in April, right? It's not in March, so we probably have a Mania preview. Okay, so we'll probably have a Mania preview up before then. But until then, enjoy the rest of March, and we'll see you again next time for another installment of the GRAP Up.